Hello everyone and welcome back to another day of Road to TCG Worlds 2017, where today we are going to be doing a special kind of video. We are going to be taking a look at the Utah regional results, which we did see, which did take place not this weekend but the previous one. So it took a while for the list to come out. Not many people posted their lists, only Mike, the winner, ended up posting it. So that's why it took me a while to make this video. I didn't want to make it with erroneous information, or I didn't want to assume anything. And there are a few interesting surprises in each of the lists, so let's take a look. Now this is Mike's newest list. Huge congratulations to him. I had the pleasure of meeting him and playing against him at Orlando Regionals, and I can tell you he's a great guy. He's a really awesome dude, and I was genuinely very happy to hear that he had won in Utah. Now Volcanion took Australia. Now it's taken Utah. The last two big standard format tournaments, and Brazil is on the horizon this upcoming weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if is Volcanion the deck to beat? Was it disregarded as a non-threat so much that many of us were taken by surprise? I don't know. I mean, you always expect Volcanion in every single tournament you go to, but not a lot of us expected it to do as well as it currently is doing. It had been posting results, definitely, but it's taken quite a while, but it's finally now getting its wins. So yeah. There was a regional in Argentina as well, which was won by Decidueye, so I guess I'm wrong. Volcanion has not taken the last three big events. It's been twice Volcanion, and then once Decidueye Tablemon. So, interesting things about this list. This list is 57 cards, exactly the same as the winner from Australia, or 56, might be 56. The base for Volcanion has pretty much been figured out. Mike did run Pokemon Ranger, whereas Pedro, from the Australian International winner, was not running Ranger. Mike isn't running Salamence, and he's running a copy of Parallel City, which I find really interesting. Parallel City, it hurts Volcanion both ways. If you play it smartly, you can get rid of the Huba and the Shaman on your bench, or even two Shamans, and leave yourself with a perfect setup of a single baby Volcanion up front or whatever, and 3 Volcanion EXs. That's your ideal setup. So it can help you clear your bench, but it's also a great way to prevent your opponent from playing Parallel City themselves. They get stuck with Parallel City in their hands. I guess because you are adding damage through Steam Up, the -20 isn't that detrimental for you, as long as you plan ahead for it and you make sure your calculations are okay. I mean, there can be times where it could hurt you. I can see against a non-belted EX you would need 3 Steam Ups instead of 2 to get a 1-hit KO. So I don't know. I personally wouldn't play Parallel City in Volcanion, but I understand why Mike played it, to try and play it before their opponents played it. Helps you clear your bench from weird Pokemon like Hoopa or Shaman, and even potentially get rid of a damaged Volcanion. Why not? So yeah, this is one of the interesting inclusions from this list. And the other is the fact that he played a single copy of Enhanced Hammer. Now, Enhanced Hammer is pretty great to delay Mega Mewtwo for a turn, to potentially delay Veltal for a turn, reduce their damage output. You can also reduce Turbo Darks, or rather Darkrai Giratina's damage output by removing a double Dragon Energy. One copy doesn't guarantee you'll find it early on. It's always useful to have. It's definitely always useful. Setting your opponent behind an energy drop, it's always going to be good. But just the one card, I don't know. I mean, it obviously worked for Mike. It definitely didn't help him in the final because it was against a pure Turbo Dark, Chrysiakala's Turbo Dark. But there are arguments to play this card, and Volcanion has this very big base of 56 cards, and then the Enhanced Hammer, the Parallel, the Pokemon Ranger. You can work with those spaces. You can play the Salamence, you can not play the Ranger, you can play a fourth stadium, you can play a different set of stadiums between Rough Seas or Skyfield, things like that. There's a lot of wiggle room, if you will, in those spots, but the 3 babies, 4 EXs, 1 Hoopa, 2 Shaman, those are a given. The 4 Sycamore, the 2 N, the 2 Lysander, the Olympia, the Fisherman, those are pretty much set in stone. The Ultra Ball, the Verse Seekers, etc, etc. 12 energy, nobody's playing less than 12 energy at this point. So yeah, I mean, that's Volcanion. Volcanion's been pretty much figured out. I don't see, like, until the next set hits and we get the Turtonator GX, I don't think Volcanion's going to be modified at all, pretty much. Knowing if your opponent is playing the Salamence CX or not is actually pretty important for how you play out the matchup, especially if you're using a deck like Mega Mewtwo or if you're using a deck like Turbo Dark. If they're not playing the Salamence EX, you can definitely use that information to your advantage, and you have more leeway in playing your EXs. Now, there's another reason why Parallel is actually pretty okay. I guess when combined with Salamence, if you Parallel to 3 bench yourself, that means your opponent can't play a Parallel to get rid of their extra EXs and therefore reduce Salamence EX's damage output. Now, it doesn't matter here because Mike didn't play the Salamence, but that's another pro for using for using Parallel CD. You get to reduce your opponent's Salamence EX's damage output, which is never a bad idea. So that's the first place, Volcanion by Mike Mewey. Second place, we have Crisiacala's Turbo Dark, which, if I'm not mistaken, he won Athens regionals with Turbo Dark. So first and second into regionals, that's pretty impressive. And he also plays a super consistent list. There's no weird tech Pokemon or anything, but he does have a few peculiar choices which differ from Jesper Eriksen's top four Turbo Dark list. Jesper went for absolute maximum consistency and he ended up playing a 3rd Shaman and a 3rd Experience Share, whereas Chris decided to play a bit more flexible supporter cards and item cards. He's running the 1 copy, well no, Jesper had the 1 copy on Enhanced Hammer, but he's choosing to play 2 Silent Lab in order to try and counter opponents' basic abilities. And he's also running 1 Team Flare Grunt in order to delay the opponent by a turn, and he's also playing the 1 Olympia. So useful and techie supporters. And the stadium, they are disruptive for the most part. I mean, Olympia helps you, it supports you, and it disrupts your opponent's damage output in the sense that healing 30 can sometimes mean turning a 2-hit KO into a 3-hit KO, which is never bad. And the rest is consistency, which is the norm for these big tournaments. 4 Sycamore to end to Lysander, 12 energy for Elixir, 4 Ultra Ball for Verseeker, and the 3 Trainer's Mail. 1 Hex Maniac, which does help against the Decidueye. I feel like the Decidueye is still a pretty bad matchup for this deck. But it has a very, very good matchup against the rest of the field. Or maybe not very good, but your speed is just outstanding in a lot of scenarios. And if you hit your max elixirs, that's all you need to have a chance against pretty much any deck in the format. Now we move on to the 3rd place deck by Aaron Tarbell, if I'm not mistaken. This is the Decidueye Valplum. We are all very familiar with this, and there's 2 or 3 things that I want to note here. He chose to play the Mewtwo from Evolutions. Now, I'm going to guess that the main reason was to counter Mega Mewtwo, because Mega Mewtwo, now that it's playing WoFed, can get really tricky against this deck. But but I will say that Mewtwo it's like a mini Lugia in a sense. I personally would prefer Meowth or Tauros or Jolteon before Mewtwo. There was a lot of Mewtwo in Utah. It was the most popular deck, I believe. So there's definitely like that was a really good meta call by Aaron. But I personally would prefer other options before playing the Mewtwo from Evolutions. It's like a mini Lugia. It's a good attacker against anything, and it's a non-EX attacker, which is great. But like I said, if you know there's gonna be a ton of Mewtwo, it's a great play. If you don't know, I don't know. I would find it hard to justify playing the Mewtwo over a Tauros or over the Jolteon and switching to the Rainbow Energies. He also ran the 4th N, which I really like in terms of consistency, but I think that the deck is already pretty, like, sure, you can stumble here and there in the beginning stages of the game if you don't draw your pieces in the right order, but I don't think that's a norm. Normally you do draw your pieces, like, or you can make sure you draw your pieces in the right order. So I think you can get more mileage out of a 3rd Lysandre rather than a 4th N, but more consistency is never bad, and it clearly helped Aaron reach all the way to the top 4. So yeah, we have these 3 decks. We have Volcanion, Turbo Dark, and Decidueye. There was a lot of talk about Quad Lapras before the tournament. Quad Lapras is definitely something that is generating a lot of hype, especially the one Wolfed version, which is kind of, I guess, plays like Wailord but with energy. You get to go on the offensive, you have the GX attack to paralyze, you have a ton of Team Flare grunts and resources to remove your opponent's energy and basically run them out of resources. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the deck. It's not my playstyle for sure. I get too impatient playing such a deck. I recognize it has a very high ceiling and a very high skill ceiling rather, and it makes sense. Like, when you play it out, it makes sense and it does win you games. But I'd be worried, maybe in a best of 3 regional, that's less of an issue. But if you lose a long game 1, there's no way you're going to win a match. And if for some reason you go 1-on-1 in a game, it's very unlikely that you'll have enough time to seal off a game 3 because you are a very slow deck. And I did try such a deck, or like that style, with a pure denial deck with Regias, Jolteon, Glacian, Garbodor in Athens. But I did tie 3 rounds, and it was mostly because of that. My damage output was not very high, and Lapras' damage output is very high, but it takes time, especially with no elixirs in the deck. It just takes so much time to power up, and you can't go aggro, especially with Lapras' restriction that you can't attack the following turn. So there was a lot of hype for Lapras. None of them ended up making top 8, and I believe just 1 or 2 made day 2. I don't know how heavily played it was. But I'm pretty sure it did show up a few numbers, so I don't know. I feel like Decidueye, Vileplume, Volcanion, and Turbo Dark are very clearly our tier 1 decks. They are followed by Darkrai Dragons and Mega Mewtwo. That's my opinion. Those are like the top 5 decks going into Brazil would be those. And I do plan on making a video. This is Monday. On Wednesday, right before Brazil, I will be talking about like my top 5 picks for Brazil, or the top 5 expected decks for Brazil, and it's those 5. Like, those are the top 3, the tier 1 and the tier 1.5, where tier 1.5 has a very good chance at beating the top decks. But the top decks, like, you're gonna have a chance against anything. No matter what you're up against, you're gonna have a shot against absolutely everything. So that's why I would consider them tier 1, because between them there's no guaranteed wins or anything, and anything below that, like if your opponent doesn't flip over a Volcanion or or a Darkrai, or even if your opponent flips over a Darkrai, like you're pretty much happy to see anything with Decidueye Valplum, because Valplum is just so strong at the moment. And yeah, those are the top 3 decks. Other decks in the top cut included more Turbo Darks, I believe 3 more. And there was a Mega Mewtwo deck, and there was a Darkrai Dragons deck by Kenny Britton. Or not by Kenny Britton, no, I'm sorry. By Tony Lopez, I guess. Yeah, Tony Lopez. So there wasn't that much variety. Darkrai and Dark types are still dominating, but they're not getting those wins, which is what was happening with Volcanion. Volcanion was showing up in numbers at the tournaments. It was making top cut, but it couldn't pull out the wins, and now it is pulling out the wins, and Darkrai is just lagging a little bit behind. And so that concludes the Utah Regionals analysis. I'm pretty sure Wednesday's video will be at top 5 picks for Brazil, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. It will showcase lists very similar to the ones you are seeing right now, and with Mega Mewtwo and Darkrai Dragons, and a few bonus picks here and there. So that will be all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.